This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so it looks like we have a decent amount of people on the line, more calling in, so I'm gonna get us started here. So I'm Courtney. I am the coordinator for the 4-County Cooperative Weed Management Area. Welcome to our summer general meeting. This one's hosted by our Clark County partners. And I just want to say that this isn't the easiest time slot since many of us are still carrying out a lot of weed work, gearing up for knotweed treatments and whatnot. So I appreciate the Clark folks for making today's meeting happen. So a few housekeeping items regarding the GoToMeeting platform. Today's meeting will be recorded. You have a series of icons at the bottom and the top right corner of your screen. The bottom icons are your microphone and webcam settings. So you can mute and unmute yourself, but please keep yourself muted to avoid disruptions, and unless you're presenting, of course. And feel free to turn on your webcam so we can see your faces. I know it's been quite a while since we met last, so it'll be good to see you all virtually, of course. And there's top icons, one of which is a speech bubble. That's a chat feature. So you could send messages to everyone or to a specific individual. But please be considerate of the language you use and just be respectful to one another. We'll have time for questions after each presentation. Justin Kalel will be the question facilitator alongside myself, and we'll read the questions out loud as they come in. So please use the chat feature in the corner. If you have a question, please reply to everyone so we all can see them as they come in. And if we run out of time for questions, we'll provide the email addresses of the speakers in the chat so you can reach out to them that way. And if you have any general questions about GoToMeeting, just feel free to send me a direct message. And there's also a gear icon, that's your settings. So if you have difficulties with your microphone, speakers, you can adjust the settings that way. There's also phone call-in instructions as well. And then there's a little people icon, that's the attendees list. You can see who's on the line with us today. And all right, so that's it for housekeeping. For today's agenda, we're first going to hear from our CWMA committee chairs who are going to give some updates on the projects each committee has been working on. We'll also get an update on the Clackamas hosted field day event. And for our first presentation, we're going to hear from Joyce Madriz, who will be filling in for Danielle Cowley today. So Joyce will share on our recent Inala Helenium discovery. And following Joyce, Justin Kalel will be sharing about a variable leaf milfoil treatment on Vancouver Lake, as well as knotweed treatments on Gibbons Creek. And following, Harris Kidd will share about indaziflam treatments on false brome. And Blaine Kistler will not be presenting with him today, just another small change in the agenda. And to wrap up, we're going to hear from Ashley Smithers, who will be giving an overview of Clark Conservation District and share about their Poop Smart Clark program, which is the funnest title I think I've ever heard. So that's the plan for today. With that, I'm going to pass the mic over to our steering committee chair, Aaron Shaw, for a brief update.
Thank you, Courtney, and good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many people joining us. It's been a while. My name is Aaron Shaw. I'm the Director of Natural Resources Programs at Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm the current steering committee chair and Washington County rep on the CWMA. First off, I would like to just welcome and let everybody know who the current and new members of the steering committee are. So in addition to myself, Sam Leininger from Clackamas Soil and Water is the vice chair and fiscal administrator. Michelle Delapine from West Multnomah SWCD is the technical and scientific review chair. Tyler Pedersen from the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District chairs the mapping and data committee. Mitch Bixby with BES is education and outreach chair. Justin Kalel is our Clark County rep. Andrea Berkeley from Metro is the Clackamas rep. Chris Aldashi, from East Multnomah, is the Multnomah County rep. Ashley Smithers is our at-large rep. And Troy Abercrombie is our ex officio Western Invasives Network coordinator. So that is your current steering committee representation. I want to welcome all the new members to the steering committee as well. So some of the things that the steering committee has been working on since we last got together. So just a bit on the state of the CWMA. A lot of our organizations and our region have been going through some financial hardship, but the CWMA is financially secure thanks to our membership. As of June 30th, we have a current balance of 58,000, just a little over 58,000, and we're receiving funds from over 13 different partner organizations. Last year, partner support and the pull together brought in $40,000 to the CWMA with an annual surplus of 18,700. And so in response to some of the surveys or the survey that we put to membership a couple of years ago, in terms of investing some of those resources back into the CWMA, one of the major projects that the steering committee is undertaking now is a complete website redevelopment and development of informational resources that can be used by the CWMA partners. And our long-term goal is to reach an annual surplus that will allow us to increase the time available for the CWMA coordinator, which is currently quarter time. And we're looking to expand that capacity to something more like half or full-time if possible. So the website project is the main thing that steering is working on right now. And we've spent some time putting together and crafting an RFP and are working on the project plan and roles and responsibilities that will allow us to engage with contractors to help us redesign and redevelop that, the current website. So I think that brings us up to date for the steering committee. I will pass it back to Courtney unless there are any questions.
Great, thanks so much, Aaron. All right, so we'll move on to our technical and scientific review chair. Review committee chair, Michelle Delapine with West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District. Oh, I think you're on mute, Michelle.
Thanks. If I suddenly disappears because my iPad died, I thought it was fully charged. It was draining all night. So welcome everyone. The tech committee has been busy. In June, we had a look and learn workshop where we went up to Forest Park and checked out some of the Anthriscus sylvestris or wild chervil. And this is a new plant that we've been seeing spread around on the west side, primarily kind of along Forest Park trailheads. Sound familiar? So we're sharing ideas, and we've been kind of doing some treatment trials and sharing what our results are. I set up some plots with variety of like IPM methods that kind of mixed in hand pulling and mechanical chemical treatments. Forest Park had great success with glyphosate. We have some great minutes available on the website if you want to check those out for more information. We also revisited nominating new species for listing, and the good news is ODA noxious weed has been refunded to pre-pandemic levels, which both I and Justin have been in touch with ODA about. The bad news is that because they're such awesome staff, they've already kind of been asked to onboard the whole program, which they kind of built from the ground up. So they're still in hemp for now, but they welcomed us to utilize their listing process materials in effort to try to help get that underway. And some of the species we're looking at are arum, impatiens, the impatiens trio, bicolor parviflora, and balfourii, Bishop's weed and butterbur were all mentioned, and I think at our next meeting we're gonna Justin's gonna be kind of taking the reins, and we're gonna do some kind of like a mini herbicide share roundtable. So join us for that if you'd like in September. And I think that's about all I have for now. And as Erin mentioned, I'm currently the chair, but my term is up next spring. So if that's something you're interested in, you might want to start thinking about it and maybe attend our meetings.
Great, thanks, Michelle. So next we'll hear from our Mapping and Data Committee Chair, Tyler Pedersen with Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Great to see your faces. Hope everyone's doing well. So yeah, I have a few things to update for the Mapping and Data Committee. So at the last meeting, we talked about, so Troy at Western Invasives Network has purchased a ArcGIS online license for the committee, so we really appreciate that. We're gonna be working with him to transfer over the priority map layers from his account to our new account, and we don't have our new account set up yet, but that'll be happening probably pretty soon. And then with the standardized data collection template, that's something that's still ongoing. I've been trying to do some work on it, in Arc Pro, but having some issues with just things getting rearranged in different order in the domains and codes. And so I think I'm going to wait to try to do some of that in in our new ArcGIS online account. So we can also, one thing we talked about at the last meeting was potentially also working with the Portland Community College GIS class next spring to get some help if we need it with the geodatabase. So that might be another option. And then for the priority map, we have received 7 ArcGIS online usernames from people, so we can share the map with them and they can collect data on the priority map. We also Jeffrey and I drafted a new limited data use agreement and confidential data principles agreement, and those forms are on the website. So if anyone's contributing data, they can fill out at least the new limited data use agreement. And then if they have any confidential data, they can fill out that form as well. And then also wanted to remind people that any data that they report to the priority map can count as contest entry, which will be due at the end of this year. Jeffrey also sent out an email to some listers about the requesting the ArcGIS online usernames to people who are interested, and then giving out the contest prize updates. And so for the contest prizes, something that we're doing that was different than last year is we're offering prizes for the top 3 categories. So for the call for data weeds, and then for the priority map. So for the call for data, the top 3 prizes are, the first one is the Volume 1 Flora of Oregon. Prize 2 is iNaturalist hat, and then prize 3 is a 3-in-1 photo camera lens kit. And then for the priority weeds, the top prize there is a custom caricature by John Wagner. Second prize is Botany in the Day plant guidebook. And then the third prize is 2 Play Clean Go handheld boot brushes. And again, the contest deadline is the end of this year, and the instructions for the data contest are on the website. So we hope more people submit their data, and they can either submit it on the Google form on the website, or they can email it with shape files to me. And then I guess the last thing is just remind people the next meeting is going to be on September 8th from 8:30 to 9:50, and we hope to see you there. That's all I have.
Great, thanks, Tyler. So next we're going to hear from our Education and Outreach Committee Chair, Mitch Bixby, with the City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I'll keep this pretty brief. We don't have a ton of stuff. In some ways, we're all just kind of coming out of our caves for the spring. For the moment, the outreach committee is kind of waiting to see what's going on with the website. I expect we'll have some amount of content to put up there. In the meantime, we're in the process of putting out a quick survey for certainly folks on the Education and Outreach Committee and maybe more generally to find out what sorts of equity projects are people working on, but also more broadly, what sorts of outreach projects are people working on, with an eye towards creating a central list of projects and resources so that we aren't necessarily recreating the wheel every time we decide we want to work on a certain kind of project or talk to a particular community. So that should be coming out as a Google form fairly soon. And the only other thing has developed, I guess, in the last couple of days, which is an interest in unifying our message around Tree of Heaven. This is a species that many of us are not working on, but there's a lot of questions about it in the public domain, and it's starting to look like the answer varies depending on who you talk to, which is not a great position to be in. So I was talking with Whitney about this from East Multnomah and Michelle Delapine last week about this as well. And so my hope is in the next little while we can start pulling together an outreach panel and try to streamline and synthesize all the various answers into a single answer. So stay tuned.
Great, thanks, Mitch. I actually saw a spotted lantern fly for the first time on the East Coast, not on the West Coast. Yeah, just last week, so that was pretty interesting to see it. It was dead, thankfully, but so yeah, to wrap up our CWMA updates, we're gonna hear from Sam Leininger with Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, who's gonna be giving us a brief update on the Clackamas hosted field day event.
So, excuse me. So, greetings, CWMA folk. Field day last year, thanks to COVID, we did not have a field day last year. We suspended it for safety reasons. And this year we were hoping to bring field day back from COVID. So for the last few weeks, we've been trying to organize a field day kind of geared towards the Lake Oswego area, talking with folks from Lake Oswego Corp about aquatic weed control within Lake Oswego itself, looking to Elaine to maybe do some work out at the Peach Cove Fin, looking to have Lake Oswego Parks come out and talk about work, talk about some of the ice storm damage and work that's been done around the ice storm damage that really hit the southern end of the metro region, as well as the immense amount of garlic mustard work that's been happening in the area, and then also some focus on some Oregon white oak restoration work and conservation efforts in the lower part of the Portland metro area. Unfortunately, here's what we're looking at. We're looking at Delta happening. Apparently in 40 minutes, the governor's going to be issuing another mask order for really the entire state. So we're kind of in a spot where we're not really knowing how best to proceed. So we're trying to cook something up to at least bring field day back in some way, shape, or form. And so right now we're either looking at either doing a Zoom meeting or, you know, something along those lines, which I think most of us don't really want another Zoom meeting. No offense to this meeting here today, but, you know, the whole point of field day is to actually get out and see some of the sites and get to understand, you know, some of the management strategies. So we're either looking at doing some kind of presentation with like a Q&A, or doing maybe a self-guided tour. So I think we're doing a little bit of brainstorming, and we're kind of trying to find some way to make this thing happen this year, and, you know, really highlight some of the work that's happening in Clackamas County. So, you know, I feel like we're catching a little bit of a falling knife as things go, related to field day, and I'm kind of bummed because we had a pretty good lineup going for our planned field day for this year. So, but we're rolling with the punches and trying to keep people healthy. So that's the best we can do at this point. So stay tuned. We're tentatively got something scheduled for either the 22nd or the 23rd. And once we have either a date or a format, you know, fully secured, then we will be sending out a save the date and additional information at that time. So Clackamas is going to do something this year. We're not going to freeload like last year, thanks to COVID. So we'll get something out there, and, you know, hopefully you guys can, you know, get out and about and see some of these sites, because there is a lot of cool work going on. And, you know, it's something that I really feel is important for us to see some of these sites and know what folks are doing. So that's it for us. And take it away, Courtney. Or Aaron, I guess.
Great, thanks, Sam. So yeah, with that, if anyone has any questions for the CWMA committees or Clackamas about the field day, feel free to just shoot it in the chat right now, and we'll just keep moving along. So we have our first presentation of today. Like I mentioned, Joyce Madriz will be presenting on a recent Enola Helenium discovery in the county. And Joyce is a weed control technician with Clark County Vegetation Management. And let me pass it over to you, Joyce.
Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, thanks for filling in a pinch.
Can everyone hear me great? Just nod if you can. Awesome.
You sound
Sweet. Good. So yeah, we have, oh, how can I, hold up. Trying to make sure you guys are able, okay, you guys can see everything. Great. Yeah, we found yellowhead, also known as elecampane, in Clark County. Before I get into it, you're probably asking, what are the, why isn't this working? What are those? A little delayed joke there. The Latin name is Enola Helenium. It is a perennial in the aster family. It's, like I mentioned, it's also known as elecampane. It's native to Asia and Europe. It was introduced as an ornamental, of course. It grows up to 8 feet, so it's really, really tall. And as you can tell, it looks like a sunflower, but it's not a sunflower, so don't try to eat it. It has, the leaves are ovate and cordate, and I had to look up cordate. Cordate means it's just heart-shaped leaves. The leaves grow up to 20 inches long and 4 to 8 inches wide. That is a very, very big leaf. It has irregular toothed leaf margins as well, and on top of the leaf, it is rough, but on the underside of it, it has this soft velvety white hairs, and the stem is also has soft white hairs, making it come off as velvety. The flower heads are 2 to 4 inches wide, like I said, sunflower-like, and it blooms in the summer during this time. It does spread via seed dispersal and through the roots. It's very aggressive. It has thick, fleshy roots that are 2 inches thick and can be up to 6 inches long, kind of like a carrot. So if you try to pull that, that's gonna suck. It's gonna hurt your back. It was used for medicinal purposes, and these medicinal purposes include like reducing a fever, used as a diuretic, or to help lung diseases like asthma, bronchitis, etc. However, it does have some toxic effects. The toxicity depends on each part of the plant and the growth stage. Some effects include like vomiting, diarrhea, and in extreme cases, paralysis. so please don't eat it. Where did we find it? Well, we found it, Danielle, I should say, Danielle found it during a survey of a stormwater facility. It's on the roadside in a very sunny spot, and it was a really new patch. She did her search really good and did not find any new patches on any adjacent properties. She found a total of 20 plants, 6 of which were flowering. It is the second record in the state of Washington for Inula. The first record is in Stevens County, which is located on the northeast corner of the state. It's listed on the monitor list, so it's not required for control, but we don't want this to spread. There is a huge, large infestation on the East Coast. I do want to mention the infestation that is in Stevens County, as that was back in the 1990s when it was first recorded, and at this point it's basically a monoculture and it keeps spreading. We do not want that here, and we don't want that spreading to any other counties or states. So let's control the yellowhead before it gets in yellow phase. Any courteous laughs? No, anyone? Okay. So we did some research and we reached out to some folks up in Minnesota. There's no known biological control at this moment. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture has only ever done chemical control, and they use 2,4-D and Escort. If you're unfamiliar with Escort, it's a MSM, the active ingredient, which is metasulfuron methyl. The University of Minnesota, which our contact was Dave Harris, kudo points to him for giving us a really extensive information on that. He has used glyphosate, and that has proven to be ineffective for them. Garlon triclopyr is the active ingredient, is very effective for them. They cut flowers and then they treat it afterwards. They do avoid pulling the plant because of the fleshy thickness of the roots. Any remaining part of the root will just grow. We don't want that. Now let's put the pedal to the metal. How did we treat the patch that we had? We did both. We did mechanical treatment and chemical treatment. We cut off the flower heads, and of the 6 plants, there were 190 flower heads. Some quick math shows that there's about 32 flowers on each plant. That's a lot of plants. That's a lot of flowers. That's a lot of seeds. So we bagged those and threw them away, not in our yard waste. Afterwards, the very next day, we treated it with some aminopyrrolid. The brand name that is in is Milestone. And then we also used triclopyr, which is Garlon 3A, is in Garlon 3A. And then with one plant in particular, one of the Inula plants, we actually sprayed it both with Milestone and triclopyr, just for scientific purposes to see what the effect was going to be. I've got some pictures to show you because it's been about 2 weeks now since we've sprayed that. The Milestone has been is showing to be very effective. It's curling, it's browning, it's looking more and more dead, and we are loving it. You can see in the top part of the photo where it actually downslopes and it gets a little more shady. And the Inula there is looking pretty alive, pretty green. We're not loving that. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that the plants closer to the picture are just getting more sun exposure. Therefore, they're getting scorched along with the chemical. And this is the rate that we used and the adjuvant that we used as well, which was competitor. Now, the next one is Garlon 3A, triclopyr. This is, wow, this one's looking definitely very dead as well. Again, it's very exposed in the sun, and it's curling, not as curling as badly as the Milestone, but it is looking really dead. I gotta say, we're doing a great job. We did add Bronc Max, which is a liquid fertilizer and a pH neutralizer of the water as well, to boost the efficacy and effectiveness of the chemical. Now for the last one, where we had the concoction of both Garlon and Milestone, it doesn't look that much different. I would say this looks a little more alive than the other two, but this was only 2 weeks after the treatment, and I will keep you all posted with what it looks like now. So let's put this on social media, because if you don't post it, it didn't happen, right? On Facebook, there were 579 views, 50 likes, and 6 shares. That may not sound like a lot, but for us, that's a good number. That's a really good number. On Instagram, it reached 503 people, and on Twitter, it reached 417 people. That means that it was liked, it was retweeted, whatever other Twitter lingo is attached with that. Yeah. These are our sources: Stevens County, Washington Noxious Weed Control Board, the Forest Service, and Minnesota. If you guys have any questions, this is the time to do it. Yeah, I went through that pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Thanks so much for sharing. It definitely seems like a great new species to keep an eye out for, especially in the 4-county region. So yeah, if anyone has a question for Joyce, please type it in the chat now. Make sure you send it to everyone, and Justin will go ahead and read them out loud as they come in.
Yeah, we have a question that just came in. And it's saying, if it has a big fleshy root, I wonder about the efficacy of foliar treatments and the need for repeat treatments. Is anybody doing cut stump treatments?
As of the information that we received from other entities, other departments, no one's doing any cut stump work. That's a great question, though. And yes, there will be need for retreatment, most likely.
All right, any other questions for Joyce? Oh, a couple more coming in.
Yeah, there's a question that came in, says, Joyce, could you mention again what kind of conditions these plants seem to like?
Oh yeah, thanks, Mitch. The question, or the response to that, is they love sun. They tolerate some partial shade, but they prefer sun, and they like disturbed areas, specifically like roadsides.
Another question, will you be monitoring for regrowth this fall?
Absolutely. We'll be out there every few weeks just to see how it's doing.
All right, any other, oh.
Hey, this is Justin with Clackamas. So I was trying to type my question to fit it in. So I actually looked at Oregon Flora Project's herbarium samples, and there's actually a number of samples of the species dating back to the early 1900s in Oregon. And there's a number of observations as far south, down the Willamette Valley. And I was wondering if anybody's, so we know it's been here, at least on the Oregon side of the Columbia, for 100+ years. I'm wondering if anybody's, had an eye, seen any of these patches of the metro region, or, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Do you know exactly where, like on the Oregon coast it was, Justin?
No, it was actually, there's a number of observations around the metro area.
Okay.
And there are even some down towards Corvallis, Eugene. Yeah, so it's been documented here on our side of the river. And I was wondering if anybody's, I assume since it's been here for, 100+ years, if anybody's seeing large patches or has noticed it around town or anything like that. Because, yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, I think somebody chimed in and said Selwood area, looking at OFP map right now.
And Lake Grove. Awesome. That's actually really good information to know. So we could reach out to those areas and see how they're treating it and controlling it, maintaining it. Thank you, Justin.
Great. Any other comments, questions for Joyce? Still have a little bit of time. Elaine says Thomas Howell collected it on Savi's Island in the early 1900s. Very interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like no one's really seen it in the 4-county area aside from Clark. Is that right? Or are there partners who are actively managing this one at all?
I don't know anyone actively managing it, but I just checked iNaturalist too, and there are a few observations on there in Portland.
Jeff
So,
Lesh?
Justin, where did Jeff Lesh find that plant?
He submitted a herbarium sample, and I think it was like Whitholt area, kind of down in the Malala Basin. It was like one plant growing, and I think in a soggy ditch. So it's either something we need to keep an eye out for, or it's, or yeah, I don't know why it's behaving super weedy up north.
Great. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks so much, Joyce. That was great.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to our next presentation, which will be given by Justin Colell, who is the lead field inspector with Clark County Vegetation Management. He'll be sharing about variable leaf milfoil treatment on Vancouver Lake, as well as knotweed treatments on Gibbons Creek. So whenever you're ready, Justin.
Great, okay. I'm sharing my screen now. Can everybody see it?
We can. We just need a full screen mode.
Yep, no trouble.
Perfect.
Okay. So, a little bit of point of clarification there. The variable leaf milfoil was actually found just this year, and it wasn't in Vancouver Lake. I've got 3 topics: variable leaf milfoil, what's going on in Vancouver Lake with Eurasian water milfoil, and then also our knotweed program. So starting off with variable leaf milfoil. This is a new species to Washington. It was just recently discovered. It's a Class A noxious weed for Washington, which means that eradication is required by law. And it's very, very limited in its distribution. There's only one other place in Washington that has had a confirmed documented infestation. So, the treatment and the results and everything are pretty preliminary from that other infestation. It's pretty unique. It has the usual feathery milfoil appearance when it is submerged. But later on into the summer months, it is also, it's variable leaf. It has these emergent leaves that come out above the surface of the water that you can see there, and has some flowering parts above the water. And so it looks a little different. It has simple leaves above the waterline. And just this year, it was discovered in Clark County. Kind of give you a reference point, there's I-5 on the left, out at Farger Lake, up at the very top right of the screen there. The arrow is pointing to Warren Seeley Reservoir, and that's where the infestation is. So this infestation is new, and here's what it looks like as of well, a month or so ago. But since then, it has had a lot more of these flowering emergent stems come out of the water. So it looks worse than this now. You've got the variable leaf milfoil right here in the foreground, right off the side of my kayak. And just some spatter dock behind it there. And this actually shows you kind of the scale of the reservoir. It's a pretty small little area, but the problem is, of course, that it's going to spread right down, potentially, I'll show you back here again, all the way down where it connects to the East Fork. You can see going south, kind of paralleling Highway 503 there, that empties right into the East Fork. And then we have lots of areas where we've already seen the Eurasian water milfoil down by Le Center. So anywhere where the water slows down is where we're targeting to do surveys. I've already started proceeding downstream from this infestation and looking for any more plants. So far, we haven't found any. And now is a good time to look, because if there are mature stands, then they're going to be peeking out over the water. And it's full life cycle. Of course, it dies back down. The stems flop back into the water, and it actually has on the same stem, it'll actually go back to having compound feathery leaves, and just kind of alternates that way before it breaks down in the wintertime. So this is one that's new, kind of alarming to have such a, it's an early detection, rapid response scenario here. But yeah, we'll be looking to get a grant from the state of Washington, the Department of Ecology. We've just been given the green light to apply for that grant just recently, just the other day actually. So that's a special early infestation grant that Ecology will give us. I've spoken to them. They want to give us the grant, so it's good to actually help out this landowner who has had trouble in the past controlling this, and there are some better options recently as far as herbicides go, but one of the unique challenges with this variable leaf water milfoil is that it actually is capable of spreading by seed as well. With stuff like Eurasian water milfoil, you see it just primarily from the autofragmentation, where it's vegetative reproduction, but it can actually, the variable leaf milfoil can actually develop a seed bank, and that could potentially mean that you wipe everything out one year and you don't see anything, and then you could have it come back from seed, which would be very, very unfortunate. So the herbicide that has just recently been introduced is called Procelicor. That one I'll talk about a little bit later too, in conjunction with Vancouver Lake. Procelicor is extremely active at very, very low concentrations, and shows very strong activity against milfoil species, but not against almost all the other plant types. Even even other ones you might want it to get rid of, it doesn't. So it's pretty specific when used at the proper rates to just go after milfoil. So interesting One other point I wanted to make about variable leaf water milfoil is that there is a look-alike species that is actually a native plant. So a native milfoil that also has this emergent behavior. So we actually had to do a DNA test to verify that this is in fact variable leaf milfoil. And when that came back, it was kind of sad. I kind of suspected it would have been, just because of how quickly this landowner has noticed that this is just swept through this body of water and formed such a monoculture. You know, there's a little bit of other pond weeds out there, and you know, spatterdock, and unfortunately yellow flag iris too. But a lot of the littoral zone of this body of water is just completely colonized by variable leaf at this point. So yeah, the preferred herbicide is Percellacor, since it's so selective and specific to milfoils. That would, you know, be a lot better of a choice than, you know, a more non-selective herbicide. One of the concerns that we have with treating this body of water is that it has an outflow, and in the Farger Lake area, you can see just east of 503 there, that area is blueberries, and they irrigate. So right where I've dropped the little pin, just west of there, there's a lot of blueberry fields that take the water directly from this. So we're coordinating very carefully with them for any potential herbicide that would be used there, so that the timing would be different. They would, you know, not be irrigating when we treat. Okay. So does anybody have any last questions about this topic, variable leaf water milfoil, before I go on?
Hey, Justin, thanks. Yeah, we do have one from Justin Cooley. Is there a good way to tell the difference between this species and Western water milfoil? The species on that one is Hipporoides.
Yep, that was the native species that I was alluding to. No, there's not. You just have to do a DNA test. The experts with ecology pretty much just said, you know, we've tried, but the only way that we'll be sure is to confirm it with DNA test. So yeah, that's what we had to do.
Great, thanks, Justin. Any other questions regarding the water milfoil? And thanks for clarifying, Justin. Sorry, I messed up that intro for you. I didn't update my notes.
Oh, no problem. That's fine. Okay, so I'll proceed to Vancouver Lake. Vancouver Lake is kind of at the southwestern edge of Clark County, right off of the Columbia, and just the west side of Vancouver itself. Back in 2019, there was a survey that Clark County Vegetation Management partnered with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and did a pretty good survey. The lake itself is over 2,300 acres. It's basically a giant mud puddle. It's very, very shallow. You can see highlighted in blue here is the 4-foot contour of the lake, and that area in blue accounts for around 769 acres or so. And they noticed that there was Eurasian water milfoil. So the Friends of Vancouver Lake is a citizen nonprofit group that was started. And the rowing and the sailing club has run into this problem with Eurasian water milfoil in Vancouver Lake, and they noticed it was increasing and spreading. So in 2019, we actually did this survey, and we found Eurasian water milfoil. Historically, there's lots of different species at Vancouver Lake, and a lot of them are native plants. You can see that the Eurasian milfoil was essentially clustered around the island that was created from the dredging. Long story, but every one of those small gray dots that are kind of hard to see is a survey point. So with the survey, we sampled the vegetation and identified it as best we could. Most of it was Eurasian water milfoil. We found it at 224 of our survey points. So that same year, 2019, the Friends of Vancouver Lake paid a contractor to apply Priscilla-chlora. And every year that we've been back since then, we can't find a trace of Eurasian water milfoil. So that was pretty amazing to us that it was so effective. I should note that the key that we were using when we did this survey, we basically were counting the leaflets of Eurasian water milfoil, and if it had fewer than 13 leaflets, we said, well, this could be a hybrid between a native milfoil, or it could be a native milfoil. If it had more than 13 leaflets, then it's Eurasian. So we didn't know at the time. We just kind of said it could be native or it could be hybrid. Afterward, they did a DNA test, and it was all Eurasian water milfoil, and it could have been that the leaves were too young, or they were kind of beat up, or for whatever reason, even with fewer leaflets, it was all Eurasian water milfoil. So even the ones that look like they might be kind of red there, it's all it's all Eurasian. There were no native milfoil samples in the lake at all. So since 2019, no milfoil, but we do still have some native species. I told you it was a mud puddle. No, here's the view from the lake. And we do have some various pondweeds, like you see here, and also curly leaf pondweed. And curly leaf pondweed is a Class C noxious weed for the state of Washington, and we've noticed that this is increasing now in Vancouver Lake. So now there's talk of, what are we going to do about the curly leaf pondweed? The Priscilla-chlora doesn't touch curly leaf pondweed, just like it doesn't touch a lot of the other things at all. So it didn't help with this situation at all. To make matters worse, the curly leaf pondweed has the ability to not only spread vegetatively, but also by little turions, which are kind of like a little tuber that forms on the sides of the stem and can sit in the sediment and move around and then sprout again, kind of like a seed, but it's just vegetative. And so curly leaf pondweed is probably going to increase quite a bit throughout Vancouver Lake. It's probably going to be quite an issue in the future. The contractor actually has said, the contractor that applied the Priscilla-chlora has actually said that a lot of times he notices when you wipe out the milfoil, then curly leaf pondweed will come in and take its place. So you don't have quite the same level of silver bullet for pondweed, which makes it problematic, and I'm much more cautious about this one because of the herbicides that you'll have to use. Looks like we have a question about non-target effects noticed from the aquatic herbicide treatment. I took some pictures of some of the Wapato that was along the shore in very, very shallow areas. And we did notice some epinesty from the Procellicore treatment, just some twisting and some chlorosis, some yellowing of the Wapato. But just like the manufacturer of the herbicide said, it looks like the plants have all grown out of it, kind of just sort of revived, were affected briefly, but weren't killed. If you look there now, there's just solid banks of Wapato, which is pretty good. Oh, another question about issues with low dissolved oxygen and dead and decomposing plant matter, milfoil. No, actually, that's one of the things that's very interesting with this herbicide is the company notes that there's no concerns at all. You don't have to split up the treatment, and they don't notice any drop in dissolved oxygen at all, which is interesting. The herbicide acts at every growing node of the plant and seems to shatter the plants apart. And the way that they decompose, it doesn't actually lower dissolved oxygen at all. So I'm not sure how that works. We just noticed that there's no more milfoil and didn't notice, anything else besides, like I said, some of the shoreline Wapato was twisting and yellowing, and it grew out of it. Since then, we find a lot more native aquatic species. The various pondweeds, but also curly-leaf pondweed has really exploded. So that's unfortunate. And I don't know what else to say about that. We're kind of monitoring the situation now. The experts have always weighed in that, you're either going to see a very shallow body of water like this dominated either by algae or by macrophytes of some kind. So, it's going to be it's going to be an issue because it's hyper eutrophic. The nutrient levels are just off the charts, and there's quite a lot of problems for Vancouver Lake, unfortunately. So here's a close-up of the curly-leaf pondweed, and just kind of also a wide shot showing the level of infestation is just growing right here by the central island. It just forms dense mats. So maybe if they could just keep it out of the rowing lanes that the rowing club wants to use. I don't know. Long-term outlook is somewhat more dire than I think it's somewhat more dire than was with the milfoil. Just because, the Columbia has milfoil, and so you're going to have constant reintroductions of milfoil from the flushing channel that connects the Columbia River to Vancouver Lake. So, it's a short-term solution at best. Any questions about Vancouver Lake before I jump over to our knotweed program? Okay, seeing none, I'll just continue. Oh, we did have one question about how are the fish species doing in Vancouver Lake. Well, haven't done any sort of coordinated fish survey, so couldn't quite speak to that empirically. Anecdotally, when we were doing our yearly survey for milfoil, and also now it's kind of turned into curly-leaf pondweed survey. Noticed fish again. The fish that are out there are carp, so it's just invasive. But there have been documented native species there too. So yeah, well, kind of kind of a wait and see game, I guess. The next time that we do have any sort of official coordinated empirical survey, then we'll have to see. But that was one of the things that was interesting about the herbicide treatment, is that the label specifies no restrictions for swimming, drinking the water, fishing, anything. There's no restrictions pretty much at all. The only thing is for irrigation of crops. So it's pretty amazing. It's been it uses such low concentrations of herbicide in the parts per billion range. So it's very good at killing milfoil, and yeah, that's all there is to say about that, I guess. So on our knotweed front, we've in the last couple of years we've faced some new language in the knotweed grant that we get from WSDA. They've changed their grant language such that basically the whole scheme has changed for where we can do surveys and treatment for knotweed. Previously, to be able to treat the knotweed on private property, we get landowner permission forms, permission to enter the property and treat the knotweed. And historically, it's taken a long time to get landowners in Clark County to sign this form. It's multiple pages, it's kind of legalese. Unfortunately, that's the way they've written it up. So it looks pretty foreboding to landowners. They're hesitant. And it's a multi-year permission, and allows the WSDA to come back years in the future and enter the property and look and see what kind of results are we getting. And landowners are not really thrilled about that. They can cancel it, but we receive a lot of feedback that they're not thrilled about that idea. And now the language has changed in the grant such that we have to have a permission form for every single property, and that if we don't have a permission form, then we can't do any survey or treatment work downstream from that property. So, as you might imagine, the one holdout can put the whole program on hold and potentially just end the whole season for that water body. So, somebody at the confluence of the Washougal and the Columbia might never see us, might never get us to help them with their knotweed, because somebody upstream of them wasn't really on board. And so the new approach is to focus on every watershed at once, basically, starting at the headwaters and working our way down. And so each little tributary we can start with and just do that as far as we can. And Gibbons Creek, this is just a photo that I shamelessly stole from water quality sampling. It's got their water quality sites on it. But it did a really good job of highlighting Gibbons Creek. So Gibbons Creek is one that we have not targeted before with our knotweed efforts for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. Before I was a coordinator and making the decisions, others just haven't really targeted Gibbons Creek. So it runs right through the Washougal city limits. It's got some forested areas, lots of tributaries. So I'm gonna take this on. The first year, the first couple years that we send out the permission forms, we get very few of them back. And so somebody at the end of this, at the confluence, it's probably not gonna see us this year. But we'll do our best. This new restricted language is going to mean that we are hampered. There's no other way to put it. It makes sense from a project standpoint to try to eliminate all the sources of infestation before you end up, mowing the lawn at the end of the stream. However, with the landowner hesitation, it's just going to be hard. So I don't have high hopes for the end of each one of these watersheds as it empties into the next, but some of these tributaries will be able to get out and do some good work starting very soon now. And I don't know if I have much more to say about that either. It'll be interesting. We're gonna try to do the whole county at once, and we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, we're just gonna do a blast. See how many people will give us permission, and then start from the headwaters of each tributary. So anyway, I'm rambling. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Great, thanks so much, Justin. We do have a question regarding the Vancouver Lake treatments, and this one is from Claire. Says, how about use of cutting machines for control in boat lanes?
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the things that I advocated for, as much as I could, was to get something that is maybe more of a yearly sustainable sort of a thing, control method. And one of the things that I was intrigued by is actually a harvester platform that has a rotating drum that actually kind of pulls on the milfoil without an emphasis on cutting or breaking, which the Department of Ecology rightly points out that if you have a harvester that cuts milfoil, you could really be doing a lot of damage in the sense of cutting it up and spreading it everywhere, since it actually thrives by fragmentation. Unless you're able to collect all those pieces perfectly, then you could be doing more harm than good. But if it were possible, and some of the areas of Vancouver Lake seem like they're kind of softer sediment bottom, and some of the areas are pretty firm. But if it were soft and it were possible to pull the plants out, then that would start to, for my mind, take nutrients out of the system, remove the plant versus having it just fragment. So it's an option that I kind of advocated for, but didn't seem like it went very far. The Friends of Vancouver Lake were pretty set on treating it with Priscillacor. Looks like there's another comment I kind of want to address. Blue Lake in Fairview, the Eurasian water milfoil, I'm not going to try to get the comment or the scientific name, is limited to about 12 feet of depth and shallower. Yeah, and in Vancouver Lake, it was limited to 4 foot or 3 foot. Most of the observations were around 3.5 feet. And the harvester that I was talking about, actually, it was able to operate in as little as 12 inches. So very shallow draft, and the rotating drum could go down, I think, 4 or 5 feet. So it'd be able to do all the pertinent areas, and especially for rowing lanes, it wouldn't take, a lot of labor hours. So I thought it was a good idea. The other thing that the other thing that was an option for control that was offered in the Vancouver Lake Integrated Aquatic Vegetation Management Plan, which I wrote, was that you could put down bottom barriers in the swimming area, swim beach, and also possibly parts of the rowing lane. And at the swim beach, then you'd prevent any plants from entangling swimmers, which might be a concern because on the west edge of the lake there is actually a county park where people can go swimming if you're into that. Swimming in Vancouver Lake, I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but yeah, that's possible. So anybody have any other questions? Another question, if you try barriers, would you report back? Yeah, I'd be happy to give you guys updates on that. It seems like it was cost prohibitive. I didn't hear a lot of enthusiasm for some of these other options, which is unfortunate because I wanted to have an integrated plan where you try a few different things. And the bottom barriers have to be replaced every year. There's a lot of sediment movement in Vancouver Lake. Like carp stir everything up. So they would have to be installed over and over again, and probably only practical for the small scale areas like the swim beach. But yeah, if we ever end up doing that, then yeah, I definitely give you guys updates on it. I don't think they will. The only other thing that they're trying right now is actually removal of phosphorus from the system. I think they were after that because of the algae blooms. There have been lots of algae blooms in Vancouver Lake that shut the lake down and toxic and deadly. So they are doing a pilot project to remove phosphorus from the lake, and I can report back on that too, because that's another thing that there's actually movement on. So yeah, if there's interest in that.
Justin, that would be really interesting. I mean, Vancouver Lake and Blue Lake have kind of parallel lives where we have algae blooms. And of course, that's the wave of the future. With climate change, algae blooms are, I mean, we're destined to simply get more. I'm also curious, I don't know about permissions in the state of Washington, but we did get a grant from DEQ, or I should say a homeowners association got a grant from DEQ and got biocontrol weevils to put in Blue Lake. And I don't know if that's an option for you up in Washington.
Yeah, I have I've personally distributed biocontrols before, and I know that there's kind of an approved species list and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's possible to use biocontrols. One of the things that I highlighted on the plan is that there actually currently isn't any company that I know of that I could find that's selling them. So you'd have to, collect the weevils if you wanted to do that.
Okay, I'll look through my things and see if I can send something to you. They got the weevils from the Midwest. They were not available locally.
Great, okay.
And it looks like we have a comment from Lindsay Wise, says, back in my day, we rode on Vancouver Lake and it was still blue, and that was in 97 and 98, which, yeah, is quite the bummer. But
Mm-hmm.
any other comments, questions for Justin before we move on?
Somebody mentioned something about carp. Yeah, there's a lot of carp in the lake. Somebody had asked a question about fish species and how they're doing. There's carp. There's definitely carp. Friends of Vancouver Lake also had a contractor remove a lot of the invasive carp, and I don't know how many carp were removed, but they were trying to do that as well. I think the idea there was that they suspect the carp are stirring up the lake and making it very turbid, and having more problems. But I hadn't heard exactly how that goes, how that went. So between that and the phosphorus sequestration, yeah, I'll give you guys updates.
Great. Thanks, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to our next presentation. And Harris, I'm going to make you the presenter so you can get ready to go. I'll give you an introduction. So yeah, next up we have Harris Kidd. He is a weed control technician, also with Clark County Vegetation Management, and he will be talking about indaziflam for false brome. So whenever you're ready, Harris.
Thanks, Courtney. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you sound good.
Perfect. So first of all, hope everybody's staying hydrated today. I mean, all of us are inside, but I guess remind your crews to drink water. Have to apologize. I'd originally planned, to bring my spandex and do some jazzercise, but with the heat warning, didn't think it was a good idea to get people to sweat it out to the oldies. So I'm just going to talk about false brome instead. So let's get into it. It's not. There we go. All right. So a refresher for anyone who didn't see our video last year on Camp Bonneville. It's a former military base. It was in use for just under 100 years, I think starting like 1914. It's 3,700 acres, including some leased DNR land. It has a pretty significant false brome infestation. Originally, when it was discovered, the estimate was that it covered in like kind of a complete carpet about 200 acres of like just solid. Over the years, due to unexploded ordnances, because it was a military base for so long, and active logging, it had kind of spread unknowingly. And so currently, the infestation is probably spread out over about 1,500 of those acres, but it's not nearly as dense as it was before, which, while is great, brings up other challenges of just trying to cover that much ground with limited resources. So false brome, just a quick, info for people who aren't as familiar with it. First recorded in about 1939 down in Corvallis. I think from everything I've read is that it was brought over for grazing, and then of course hybridized or was bred to become more vigorous, and it escaped, of course. And over the years, it's just creeped north. I believe there's even a couple reports this year of it being in counties north of Clark County, so that's discouraging. So we've been tackling it for a good amount of years, and it's fairly well known. It's like glyphosate works on it. Various grass herbicides have had good luck with reducing it and keeping the native vegetation cover. So why are we trying indaziflam? just recently, indaziflam, it's been around since about 2011, mostly used for bare ground in industrial areas and roadsides. It was just approved in the past year for use in natural areas. The driving point behind that was grazing to deal with cheatgrass in like the Great Basin and east of the Cascades. It's a non-selective pre-emergent, so regardless of what seed it is, it will prevent germination, is the theory. It kind of creates a barrier in the first inch or so of the soil. It is the consistency of Elmer's glue, so if you're mixing it, it is you got to make sure it's agitated and well mixed, and you just kind of, as you're walking around, just wiggle your backpack around because it'll settle out and gets pretty gunky. It is very expensive. I'm surprised and very thankful that my managers allowed me to experiment with this. It's almost $1,000 per gallon. If you get the 2.5 gallons, that's getting up there into the it's almost $2,500. They do sell it in a quart, I believe. And it lasts quite a while because one of the great things about it is it has a really low use rate. So that's about like, it'll set you back about $250. And if you're using backpacks, it's pretty minimal amount that you use. So one of the reasons we wanted to try this, in reading back in some of the old False Brome Working Group newsletters, they did herbicide trials with Surfland and some other pre-emergents. They had some modest success with that, but the big drawback back then was how long the pre-emergent works for is usually limited to like 4 to 6 months. The one potentially big selling point for indaziflam and rejuverant specifically is that they're getting up to 4 years of control on annual grasses. And our thinking was, if we can even get like 1 to 2 full years, that will just greatly help us knock back the seed bank. And that alone would just kind of save us in personnel hours and the need for going in like treating multiple times a year in the same area. This is a map of Bonneville with yellow outlines or fairly consistent solid patches, not solid anymore, but scattered, and the red dots are individual satellite patches. And as you can see by this fun, not scientific animation, is that despite all of our treatments, we're still getting escapes. Whether or not it's the brush clearing from contractors, I also suspect deer and our own vehicles are just kind of moving it within the site. And it's hard to get a handle on getting no seed when it's growing in such dense shade and vegetation. It's like the worst game of whack-a-mole ever. You go through a site, hit it 3 times, and then come back next year and you're like, why is there so much seed here? So the picture on the left is one of the satellite patches I found that wasn't previously mapped. You can see the seed rain from one plant is about 6 feet, like all around. They put out a massive amount of seed, and if it's downslope or usually on a deer trail, it can go for miles, and it's become a real pain. In addition to that, it's become longer to work through just because they're more scattered, you're searching more. And one of the biggest kind of motivators for trying this new herbicide was COVID. For about the better part of last spring, we had one person working for a month, like alternating, when normally we'd have up to 10 people for that period of time hitting it. And so we lost a lot of ground because we just weren't able to get people out there. And, there was the unknown of staffing and budgets. So that was the big motivator for us. Vehicles and deer, it's both, they're they're sneaking around. So getting into the nitty gritty of how we're using it, primarily on the east of the Cascades, it's being boomed with aerial applicators. Obviously not very practical for us. We want to keep a lot of our native vegetation. So we've been mixing into our 3-gallon backpacks primarily. It's very hard to measure out 0.125 ounces per gallon. I was able to find some measuring cups that had milliliters on them, which made it a lot easier. So you're using minuscule amounts. Mixing, if you're using any fertilizer, if you're doing like a tank mix, the AMS goes in first, then Rejuvera, and then your other active ingredients and adjuvants. Agitation is the key. You just really have to mix it in there. Our kind of approach to this was twofold. Because we wanted to avoid creating huge holes in the understory of where native vegetation was competing, we would have one person with a glyphosate only pack spraying the mature plants, and then other people were coming behind them, kind of coating the area where the seed would have fallen with the Rejuvera before any of the seeds had germinated in early spring. As the seeds kind of started to germinate in areas we hadn't gotten to, we switched to using grass specific herbicides, using Post and Clethodim, and we kind of settled on Clethodim just because it seemed to be acting quicker, and that's what we were looking for. So results to date, we've gotten 6 months of control. In total, we covered about 33.5 acres of solid infestation. We were using 5 ounces per acre. And when it was applied at the correct time and the correct rate, it seems to be doing great. Really, it's just a waiting game of seeing how long that lasts, and that'll kind of be the key to whether or not this is going to be a useful tool. However, it needs a decent amount of rain to activate. So with sporadic springs, there were times we applied it and there wasn't any rain before germination happened. So in those cases, we'd have to go back and retreat, not with indaziflam, but with other herbicides. So that was kind of a bummer. But with some of these dry springs, it's just to be expected. If it does last for that many years, then it kind of doesn't really matter. But if it is only active for a year, we kind of missed out on that one. So we'll have to adjust that in the future. When our personnel were applying it, having them visualize kind of where the seed would be if there weren't actively growing plants or just dead stalks was kind of another issue, and making sure they covered under and around obstacles and that kind of thing. And if you're ever not using everything, just like agitating kind of constantly was a big thing. You'd find it condensed in the bottom of your pack, which kind of might explain why some of the areas didn't quite get as good control. It's not the silver bullet, obviously, that we're all hoping for. We're like, I'll just spray it and walk away and we're done. But I think it has the potential to be a useful addition to the IPM toolbox. It's also great as a rainy weather task for when we do have those wet falls and springs when we can't really do much else. You're allowed to spray in the rain because it just makes it more effective, actually. in regards to the price, so we used a total of 1.3 gallons of product covering those 33 acres, which works out to about an additional cost of $1,300 in product. Comparing that to like the cost of say like hiring a contract crew of 5 people for a day, which might run around $2,000. So if you can save re-entry times and retreatments, like just one day alone, you kind of already start to see those savings appear, which whether or not you're saving money or just being able to put those resources onto other plants and other areas and expand how much you can treat is kind of the goal, because the one thing we don't have is more time, especially when it's so weather dependent. Yeah, so we're hoping that with longer growing seasons due to the weather and more extreme weather, limiting when we can spray from heat, and the staffing challenges, especially with the Delta variant coming back again, it's kind of useful to have this it's a little safety buffer, hopefully, for when it is the right spot to use it, to kind of help prevent the seedlings from just taking over completely when we're not able to get out there. So, any questions? Sorry if I talk too fast.
No, that was great. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, any questions for Harris? I did love the cartoon of Scrooge McDuck like shoveling the gold.
Yeah, I was like, it costs how much?
Right, yeah, that's pretty wild. But yeah, anyone have any comments, questions before we move on?
There's a question came in
Yeah.
on the chat. It said, where did you find Rejuvera?
So it's manufactured by Bayer. So anyone who carries their products will probably be able to get it for you. We go through Wilbur Ellis to source ours. And I heard about it originally just from, I'm sure people have seen at the conferences, the Bayer representatives showing their test results while they're seeking approval for it. They're pretty impressive, but take it with a grain of salt. They're trying to sell it to you, so. Thanks, Mitch. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, like more specific or like in using it, just shoot me an email. I don't mind sharing. Why not broadcast with clethodim from Justin Cooley? This is the first year using clethodim on falciparum for us, so we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. It's a lot slower acting than glyphosate in our side-by-side tests, so depending on when we caught the plants, if they were just about to start bolting or going to seed, it wasn't quick enough to stop them, but it's great on seedlings. So we did do a lot of tank mixes of the clethodim and indaziflam and kind of broadcast those areas.
Great. Anything else? Oh, Joyce asks, how slow acting are you talking?
I mean, some of the plants weren't fully dead, like up to 2 months after spraying them. They weren't putting on any new growth, but yeah, definitely. And if we sprayed them, I think I sprayed one with Post kind of around February, and definitely probably too early. They just pushed through it eventually. That's Elaine's right. That's kind of where I got the heard about it first, was them using it in the cheatgrass and Medusa Head in the basin east of the Cascades.
Great. Anything else? And maybe if I know Harris's email, you guys could see it right now. But the other presenters, if you want to throw your emails in the chat and reply to everyone, that'd be great. Then you guys can go ahead and send any lingering questions to them that way. Looks like Elaine has one more question. Does anybody know if it's effective on rat tail fescue?
I don't know specifically, but it only has pre-emergent qualities, no post-emergence. So I think it would, but it's also non-selective. So in theory, it should prevent germination, but you would need to use something else in conjunction with it for the mature plants.
Great, thanks, Harris.
Thank you.
Yeah, great presentation. So with that, we will move on to our final presentation of today. And that will be given by Ashley Smithers, who is a conservation specialist with Clark Conservation District. And she will be presenting on an overview of the district as well as their Poop Smart Clark program. So let me give you presenter abilities, Ashley. All right, there you are.
Okay, can you hear me and see me?
We can. I can't see you, but.
Oh, well, you can hear me. You can see my screen.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Okay, hello. I just wanted to do a quick introduction about Clark Conservation District. We are one of the newer organizations to the CWMA. I think we just came on, well, like 2 years ago, a year ago. So anyhow, with that, okay. So Clark CD is a completely grant-funded organization that works in Clark County to connect residents to provide technical assistance and connect them with funding sources to provide conservation on their land. The main things that we accomplish are being a resource for that technical assistant for like livestock, forestry, residents, as well as we do put on a number of webinars and workshops. And I will say that the work that we do around weed management is primarily through those technical assistance site visits. And so oftentimes that's, in my case, like providing weed ID, technical assistance on removal practices, and that's typically done by the landowner. And oftentimes we will write that into any conservation planning work that we are doing with the private landowners. So a couple of our current programs that we're doing are, you know, one of the big things is that we are in this like state of growth as a district. When I came on about 2.5 years ago, there were 2 of us, and as of Monday, I believe we are up to 6 staff now. So we are growing, and that has a lot to do with our grant funding. So the first one that I want to talk about is watershed stewardship. This program is focused on education through workshops, webinars, site visits. And honestly, this is where I provide the most TA on weed species, as well as just stormwater practices within the county. The next one is near and dear to my heart, our amphibian education workshop. I have a background with amphibians, so when I found out that that was part of my job, I got very excited, and mainly that's connecting different residents of the county with the connection between stormwater practices and amphibians. And I think the thing that we are known most in our area, a lot of times when I run into people, they just are like, oh, you guys are the ones with the native plant sale. So we are starting to use that as an opportunity to educate our residents on native plants and other programs in the region, connecting them with our partners, as well as talking to them about like weed species they can remove. So Historically, we are known for our work with agricultural producers through site visits, working with NRCS and our equipment rental program, but we are also starting to kind of move into some other areas. So we also have a stewardship forestry program. So along with forest management plans for small forest landowners, we provide that technical assistance site visits. And again, that's another time to connect them with a lot of resources and on weeds and other county resources available to them. We have the Family Forest Fish Passage Program, which we like to refer to as FFPP. And that is a culvert replacement program, and we usually do a couple of these projects a year. And this is a really cool program because it is absolutely not a dime for the landowner, and it's 100% funded project, so it's a cool opportunity. And then I was going to spend the rest of this time talking about our most recent program, Poop Smart Clark. Okay, so this is a multi-partner project with Clark County Public Health, Clark County Clean Water, the Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington, the Washington State Extension, Clark Conservation District, and then we're getting funding through NRCS and Ecology. This program initially started with, honestly, my supervisor and I chuckling over a presentation done by Skagit County on their Poop Smart program. And so we thank them for the initial ideas, and they also gave us a lot of graphics and starts to our program development. So we started learning about it from Skagit County, and then we started getting together with our partners to come up with creative ways to use those graphics and the program concepts to implement it into our programs here in Clark County. The ultimate goal of this is to have improved water quality in our streams and reduce bacteria. And like I said, honestly, there's just been so much chuckling between our partners, and then also just kind of stretching our, I like to say, what professionalism is, because we're kind of always coming up with fun ways to bring in poop to the conversation. So my goal for presenting to you guys on this today, I know it's not about weeds, but it's just to kind of give you guys some creative ideas about marketing and communications of your guys' programs, and to really think outside of the box. So just a fair warning, if you haven't noticed already, I'm going to be saying poop a lot in this presentation. So from that initial concept, what is Poop Smart Clark? It is a pollution identification and correction program, or as we like to say, a PIC program. And we use the data, including water quality testing data from Clark County Clean Water, land use data. We created an ag layer, as well as using some other GIS data. And then the septic system records from Clark Public Health to help inform a variety of targeted outreach methods. Basically, we are identifying the type and location of poop in our streams, and then we are using these creative targeted marketing and outreach to specific areas of the stream to correct the issue. We are also using a couple fun incentives, like some pasture sticks. We did a kind of a soft rollout of the program this past spring with the Tarp Your Manure program. And then we have some dog poop bag holders. And one of the cool things is working with all these different partners is that Clark County Clean Water already had some initial testing, and we were able to start identifying that dog poop is significant in all county streams. And so with that, we're like adapting our program as we are getting the data in. So, as I mentioned, this program is data driven. The PIC process drives awareness, behavioral change, and on-the-ground implementation, leading to improved water quality. This is something that's often used in shellfish programs, and so this is kind of the first time that we're moving it into this streams and poop program. So first we identify the source and the type of bacteria. Then we are providing outreach in targeted areas. Given COVID, we'll see how this works out, but our original idea was doing these door-to-door outreach and providing kind of customizing it based on the bacteria that we find in the particular area. So that could be adjusting our materials, our resource packets, maybe to include more of the outreach, or sorry, more of the like agricultural stuff if we're finding a lot of like horse and cow manure poop, or if we're finding like human or dog, then we just adjust that based on those stream reaches and areas. Sorry, Elaine, good job. Revenge of the Turds, love it. So yeah, so we are providing the resources, including the technical and financial assistance for septic and maintenance and repair through these like coupon voucher programs, as well as we're doing like livestock best management practices. So that could be exclusion fencing, riparian planting, that could be including some weed management recommendations. So this is an example of a flyer that we got from Skagit County, and that is kind of what we're going to be providing our residents, and then also like through social media marketing, which we've done a little bit of. So at the core of it, again, our program focuses on stormwater benefits, water quality stuff. So, and at the root cause, and we're getting at the root causes of serious water quality problems in our area, and for the most prevalent sources of bacteria and nutrient pollution, which are humans, pets, and livestock. And that's, you know, that's why we have these different partners, because you can kind of see it in the partners to address each of those different areas. So this is an example of a program that we launched this spring. We did a 3-webinar series. And then we were very quippy, like keeping the poop out of the water. Then after we did the 3 webinars, as part of attending a webinar, we had people sign up for a site visit where we would go out and put a tarp over their manure piles. We recognize that this is not the like solution to the problem, but using this as a way to like get in the door and then you know, help them know kind of the next steps of maybe like enrolling in our Poop Smart Clark program. It's so hard to say, and maybe working towards something like a manure storage facility or a riparian or wetland exclusion fencing and buffer plantings. So these are just a couple of fun examples of our social media posts and advertising from this last spring. So ultimately, I just really wanted to present this to you guys so that you guys know to have fun with your programs, to kind of think outside that box. You know, there's a couple of fun videos out there from Skagit. We're gonna take a couple of the graphics from it and end up like kind of bringing it into our work and goals in Clark County. But yeah, be creative. I think about the Goat Head Festival in Boise, Idaho, and how that's like something that's just fun and it just catches people's attention. We've already, when doing site visits and talking to producers, introduced this program and said, oh, and we'll have this program, Poop Smart Clark, that's coming up that we, you know, might have funding for XYZ. And I would swear that like 90% of the time or more, I get this come again, what did you just say? And then it just opens the door to kind of a fun and engaging conversation. So with
Ashley,
that,
you've got a question.
yes, I'm on
Uh,
question.
Yeah, somebody said, what are some notable turd-loving plants that folks can plant in their buffer?
I'm loving all these comments. Yeah, I think that in general, just planting buffers is really good. I remember years ago reading a paper that said that even something as little as like a 20-foot buffer helps filter out a lot of nutrients. And so for us, it's really about creating those exclusion fences so that you don't have livestock going into I'm sorry, Harris, I can't look at the chats. So yeah, just creating that buffer so that the livestock can't go in, and then you know, that will help filter a lot of the nutrients. So we're working with, there's different streams with different buffer size, and Ecology has some different recommendations on those buffer sizes as well. But yeah, so I'm loving some of these, like Douglas Asterd. I think I'm gonna need this chat so that I can bring a couple of these into our future marketing, so.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I think we're all chuckling behind our computers silently.
Yeah,
But
and I will say that is like really what got it started is my supervisor and I were sitting in the office watching these videos and we were just laughing and we were like, this can be a fun way to bring what could be ultimately kind of a boring message of like, pick up your poop, like, and then like, plant buffers, just like the same old repetitive stuff, and it gives it a spin and some new ways to do it, and it created some really fun partnerships. Like going into this, we didn't think like, oh yeah, we're gonna work with septic systems and county health, but it's ended up being a really cool part of our program.
yeah, I think the messaging is fabulous. And I'm curious who was the graphic designer who helped out with those?
I'm not sure. We got it all from Skagit County. They got a EPA grant a couple of years back to do a lot of this work, and then they were super generous and gave us like all of their files and graphics for it, and then as well as like some of their website stuff. So in the next couple of months, we're going to be redoing a new Poop Smart Clark website with a lot of these graphics. And then, like I said, we've been able to use them for some of our other marketing right now, which is awesome. I can find out if you guys are interested.
Yeah, that'd be great. Joyce says, when in doubt, scoop it out.
Yeah, I really want to know these chats later.
Yes, I could download it and send it over to you, no problem. All right, any other questions, poop jokes for Ashley? Looks like we have about 5 minutes left of today's meeting. And I just want to say we're really excited to have Clark Conservation District as a new signatory with the CWMA. So if anyone wants to become a member organization with us, just let me know. I'm happy to give you more information about that. All right. Well, I don't see any other comments or questions. But I do want to just thank all of our Clark County partners for today's meeting. All of your presentations were extremely informative, and I want to just thank everyone for attending today. It seems like probably the perfect day given it's going to be 100 plus. So nice break from field work and all that. And our next general meeting will be hosted by our Washington County partners. So Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District will be taking the lead on that. It's scheduled for Wednesday, October 13th, same time, 10 a.m. to noon. It may be held as a hybrid model if things slow down with the Delta variant. It sounds like they've lined up an outdoor venue for us, and we'll also have remote options. But we really kind of have to play it by ear and see how things play out. So more information to come, and I just want to give this opportunity to any of our partners to share any updates, job opportunities, neat success stories, anything like that in our last 3 minutes.
I'll throw out one new weed observation in Clackamas County. We did find plumeless thistle in Milwaukee area, so that's one to maybe do some research on and keep a lookout for. So I'll leave it at that.
Courtney, I wouldn't mind sharing just a couple pictures real quick, about 30 seconds. And actually, I noticed you had that Tillamook estuaries thing on your screen. You have to activate the bacteria pin marks. But when you do, it'll drop a bunch of pins and you can look at poo levels. I want to share.
Should be presenter now. Cool.
So after the CWMA released the IPM calendar, I was going through it and I saw a ton of great information, and I was trying to look for ways to maybe display some of it in a little more user-friendly interface that folks could use either on their phone or their laptop out in the field, whatever the case may be. And so I've been working with CWMA Group to convert the IPM calendar into a digital resource. It's not quite finished yet. We're still working on it. I was hoping to have it done by this meeting, but we're adding lots of neat features to it. And so I just want to share a couple screenshots of where it sits right now. You'll be able to pull up the, you'll be able to embed this thing on any website. So any of the organizations can put this on their website for the public to use if they want, or keep it in-house. And you'll be able to view this stuff as a gallery initially, but then for any field that is in there, regardless whether it's the growth type, the treatment month, any of that stuff, you'll be able to sort by any field that's in the form. But the initial view would be a gallery view like this. They'll all have pictures. And then when you go into one, you'll be able to see all of the different treatment methods and the treatment timings for those methods and expand those. You will see different things in there based on phenology. So if some of the treatments are, phenology-based treatments and application timings, you'll be able to discern some of that stuff. You'll have the ability to link out to things like IMAP distribution lists, additional BMPs that you may have or that you're aware of. You'll be able to add field notes. So if you experience something in the field while you're working with one of these weeds, you'll be able to add a record in here that folks will be able to see, where you can share your experiences. You'll also eventually be able to link out to the Ford County priority map, make reports. You'll be able to link to the hotline. And so that was what I wanted to show you. It's not quite done yet. It's been a lot of fun getting this thing put together. I hope folks will use it. I don't know how many people are using the calendar on a day-to-day basis. If you're not using it because of the way it's presented on paper, maybe this will give you some motivation to give it another shot, because it is a fantastic resource with a lot of great information. And so I just wanted to share that with you all. The BLM, I was able to secure funding from the BLM to support this project. So thanks to the BLM for supporting this effort. And that's all I got.
Thanks, Troy. Quick question from Joyce. Really neat. Are you turning this into an app or website link? You might have answered that.
Yeah, so the initial plan was to create a native app that you wouldn't need to have internet functionality for, but apparently that's really, really, really expensive and requires some really complex coding skills that that I don't have, and neither do the folks that I'm working with. So at the moment, this will be a web-based platform, but anywhere where you have cell phone service or internet service, you'll be able to use it. And we're exploring ways to have an offline capability, so you could view all the stuff. You wouldn't be able to do the outlinks to the different platforms or other stuff that are web-based. Those functions wouldn't be available when you were looking at it in offline mode, but you would be able to at least see all the treatment information, treatment methods, timing, phenology, pictures, and all that stuff.
Sweet. Thanks, Troy. And with that, we're at time. But I do want to just share a quick joke that Whitney put in the chat from her colleague, Katie. What did the Douglas ass turds say when they got planted in the bioswale? Reporting for duty. That's great. So with that, stay cool out there. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you in October.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to Clark. Great job.
Stay cool, everyone.
All right, for our steering committee members, we're gonna stay on this line and come back at 12:30 for our meeting.
I won't be joining you.
You will be or it won't be?
I will not be. Sam's got the reins. Sam and Courtney.
What? Protest. Protest.
Oh man, party. Throw a party while the boss is gone.
Sorry, childcare issues coming up. So
Yeah,
That's okay.
Bring them along.
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah,
Make
thanks for
more.
the heads up, Aaron.
Good luck with it, Aaron.
take care, guys. Great meeting. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
We'll see you soon.